For years we have been indoctrinated that the world is dangerously overpopulated, and that this is the cause of war and starvation and disease and famine. And that all human suffering can be alleviated with the annihilation of a vast chunk of our population. This is utterly false. It was false in the 19th century when the idea of overpopulation was first promulgated. It was false in the 1960s when the population boom was first published. And it is false now. Today I will discuss that overpopulation is not the great threat we face, but rather declining birth rates that pose a severe threat that will strangle our economy, cut our workforce in half, and lead to eventual population collapse. Today I will discuss the evolution of this false theory, its most ardent proponents, and why it is false. In 1798, Thomas Malthus, an English economist, he published an essay on the principle of population. Malthus predicted that as populations increased exponentially, the food production would increase linearly, creating an inevitable mass starvation. Let's put this theory to the test. In a study by Marion Turpey, he took the purchasing power of time spent in blue-collar jobs from 1919 to 2019. And he determined that the same amount of time working in a blue-collar job in 2019 can buy 12 times more food than in 1919. That is a 2.49% compounded rate per year, or doubling your purchasing power every 28 years. If you think about it, this isn't really that hard to believe. In most countries today, starvation is not the problem, but rather obesity. There is world hunger, but this results from bad policy and war, not population size. Nevertheless, in the 1950s and 1960s, this idea grew traction and the population bomb was published. This panic led to coercive population control supported by the United Nations. The United Nations supported dangerous genocidal population control restrictions that China and Peru were putting in place. China sterilized millions of their women and forced 50 million abortions in the first 6 years. The population bomb stated that not only were we running out of resources and food, but that we were running out of space. Let's put this also to the test. Let's say that every person was given a 30 by 30 plot of land. Everybody in the entire world would fit in the state of Texas, or 1/200th of the land area of the entire world. We have a lot of space. In fact, just recently in 2023, the United Nations has retracted the policy. The United Nations has turned back on what they once believed. And they said that the idea that the world is overpopulated is a fallacy. Now, what is the effect of this unnatural population restriction? Declining fertility. 2/3 of the world lives now in sub-replacement countries, which means that the countries aren't replacing themselves and they are shrinking. Not just shrinking, but declining exponentially. The birth rates are so low, especially in countries like Europe. Now, populations are supposed to decline, the fertility rate is supposed to decline naturally from causes such as urbanization, modernization, education, and perhaps even delayed marriage. But this artificially created dangerously low population rates, birth rates. And the UN predicts that most countries below replacement, countries will be below replacement level very soon. The consequence? Aging population, shrinking workforce, economic strain, and rising tax burdens. This is because as the fertility rates decline, then the young people decline and the aging people increase in percentage. So then the younger people have to take care of the older ones, and that rises cost in social security, and which will lead to a population collapse of a rapidly aging population. In short, the world is not overpopulated, but rather dangerously low fertility rates pose a threat to humanity itself. Large families are essential for stability. You should not be guilty in having as many children as you desire. We must support policies that make raising children affordable and accessible. And we must reject these outdated myths and embrace truth.